Yes, hello everyone. Welcome to a webinar on mobile learning for healthcare. Could mobile be the best medicine? Good afternoon to our viewers from Australia and morning if you joined us from Asia. Thank you for being with us today. My name is Sanjay and I'm a marketing executive at Upside Learning. I'm going to be doing a quick introduction before we get on with the webinar. There's a couple of housekeeping things I have to go with you all very quickly. You will be receiving the recording of the webinar via an email. We have some polls lined up for you during the course of the webinar, so please do participate. And lastly, feel free to ask any questions from experts using the chat facility. Now, just a bit about the company, Upside Learning. For 10 years, we've been helping organizations of different sizes and types to improve performance through better learning. With our head office in India, we serve clients based in the UK, USA, Australia, Middle East, North Africa, and other countries. Right now, on with our mobile solutions. This includes Upside LMS, a multi-award winning learning management system, which happens to be responsive. Upside to Go, our dedicated mobile performance support platform. Our framework for responsive e-learning development, which helps develop responsive learning and performance support interventions for multiple devices, and our custom learning solutions for mobile devices. And all our solutions are built on the foundations of technical reliability, cost effectiveness, and innovation. We have been recognized and awarded by Brandon Hall, Training Industry, Deloitte, CLO, Apex, and I won the award for the Best E-Learning Team of the Year for 2013 by E-Learning Age. And recently we also won the 2014 Apex Award for Publication Excellence. Alright then, so let's get on with the webinar. It is my pleasure to introduce to you the speakers. Jeevan Joshi, Director of Client Solutions of Asia Pacific for Upside Learning. Dean Millington, the Managing Director of Antidote Marketing. And Ujjwal Shangarpawar, Product Manager of Upside to Go for Upside Learning. Jeevan, over to you.
Thank you very much, Sanjay, and welcome everyone to our afternoon webinar in Australia. My name is Jeevan Joshi. I'm actually in Melbourne at the moment. Usually I'm in Sydney along with Dean, who's also in Sydney. So we're just coming from different parts of the globe for this webinar. So thank you very much for joining us. What we'll be covering today essentially can be broken down into 4 parts. Number one is we look at the big picture as to how mobile learning is being used in healthcare, and certainly with Dean and myself, we've had discussions about what an exciting space healthcare is in terms of the application of mobile learning and making the workforce productive. And we'll discuss some of the big picture and the trends in healthcare mobile learning. Then importantly, we'll talk about user cases, and in particular we'll talk about 2 user cases and the case studies. Number one is the augmented reality. So Dean is sharing some of the work that he's done in terms of using augmented reality for healthcare companies, for workforce training, and also for Salesforce enablement. I'll be talking about how a case study about how there was one healthcare company which required their current online learning infrastructure to be made mobile. So we'll talk about that. And finally, Ujjwal will join us for a discussion around the lessons learned. So from the experience that we've had with working with customers, we'll share with you some of the lessons learned that we've picked up along the way. Okay, so let's move on to. We've got a poll which we're going to share with you very shortly. If you can respond to that poll, that'll be fantastic. Essentially, if you can, essentially, the question asks, where are you in terms of your mobile learning implementation? So if you can respond to that poll by selecting the right choice, which is more appropriate for you, that would be fantastic. So we'll just wait for a couple of minutes for the participants to respond, and then we'll close and share the poll with you. But certainly, what we've seen in the field is that mobile learning is getting a lot of pickup. At the moment, I think we can close the polls now and share it. But essentially, half of you are currently implementing mobile learning, and half of you have no immediate plans to implement mobile learning. And I think for both both types of audiences, I think we've got something of value in this webinar for you. Thank you very much for responding to the poll. So let's talk about healthcare, and I assume because you've turned up for this webinar, you are interested in healthcare. And before I start, there's actually a question from James asking whether the recording will be available after the meeting. Yes, James, the recording will be available after the meeting for those who have missed, and also for replay. So, so for those who spend some time trying to understand the healthcare industry, it is one which is being disrupted and buffeted by not only, I guess, the commercial realities of running a healthcare system, but also the impact of technology, which is opening up a lot of possibilities. In his book, Clayton Christensen talked about that. Technology will be a healthcare disruptor, and we're starting to see that happen in a lot of fields in healthcare. And he identified essentially three factors that contribute to this disruption. Number one is the sophisticated technology that simplifies. So we're getting technology now that makes it easier to simplify the business of healthcare learning. Then we've got low-cost, innovative business models. So people are thinking outside the box to essentially look at what can be done differently, and also looking at the dollars behind the healthcare dollars and how more can be delivered from less. And in the middle of all this is obviously regulations and standards that facilitate the change. What is also interesting, another trend, is the adoption of mobile devices, and as you can see from the graph that the number of smartphones and tablets is going to dwarf the number of personal computers. So if you see the red line down there, the red area, that's personal computers, and it's pretty much stayed stable or increased slightly. If you look at the blue area and the orange area for smartphone and tablets, that expanded exponentially. So as you can see, that people are accessing information through various devices, which is more and more smartphone and tablets. In terms of our workforce, what we've got here is that our workforce itself is becoming extremely mobile. So here's a statistic from IDC study, which looked at the worldwide mobile worker population, and you can see the numbers, especially for Asia, from 2010 to prediction in 2015, is the numbers have gone up substantially compared to the other regions. So Asia Pacific certainly is a region which is ready and primed for mobile-enabled business processes and business models. What is also interesting is that our customers are also going digital. So here's an interesting statistic interesting graph from McKinsey, the Healthcare of Digital Future, which was released this year. And if you look at the chart, you can see that on the top are the digital channels, the new channels, and the traditional channels of a phone or physically going into a branch office, for example. You can see that on top of that are the newer channels of communication and health delivery, which is smartphone apps, social media, email, and website. And you can see that already there is a big acceptance of websites and emails, the means of communicating with patients and consumers. But what is also quite impressive is the acceptance of smartphone apps, especially in Singapore, where the numbers are pretty high, and also in the UK. So Germany is a little bit slower, but both smartphone app and social media, are a very favored communication channel for patients, and that's the way that they prefer. So you can see that it's changing. The mix of communication and consumer preferences are changing. So more mobile phones and tablets, a consumer base that's ready to access information, healthcare information through and services through these channels. And the next slide, we talk about the physicians themselves. If you have a look at this chart, this is from a report on mobile trends. You can see that the progression from 2012 to 2014 is that physicians and healthcare workers are increasingly starting to use multiple devices. So earlier, where 99%, there was only an overlap of 28% of people who used computer, smartphone, and tablets, to 82% in 2014 who are using all three kind of devices. Now that's quite impressive, and the report has termed them as digital omnivores. So I think this might this one actually also tie in with your own experience in terms of the number of devices that you are using to access to access information through the internet. So that has increased. So all these trends are leading up to the adoption of learning methods in healthcare, moving more from face-to-face or the traditional means to web-based and online methods. And you can see from the graph is the arrow shows the adoption in CME or continuing medical education through mobile. Right, so a lot more healthcare professionals are accessing or doing their CME through mobile, and also, of course, web-based methods. So it has been a shift from face-to-face to online. So all these stats, kind of indicate we are moving across more to a mobile world. And we've got another slide. And if you can just respond to this particular poll on this, which is on the slide, essentially, if you could indicate where you are in terms of your mobile learning journey. Are you still a novice, sporadic, developing, established, or embedded? These definitions are from a report that Upside Learning recently sponsored with Towards Maturity on Mobile Learning. So we picked up the same definitions, and as soon as we've got a few more votes, I think we can close and share the results with the audience. Okay, so very soon we'll see the results on the screen, and what you will see that 40% of our participants in today's webinars are novices. 40% are developing and coordinating the use of learning technology, so they are midway there, and 20% are sporadic, which means that they have I guess just started. So there's nobody really in terms of maturity of using mobile learning in the higher ranges. Okay, so let's compare this with a chart from the report. Now, what these percentages indicate is that 72% of the organizations that consider themselves to be novices have already started implementing mobile devices and mobile learning, right? So even organizations which consider themselves novices are into mobile learning, so you can see that that's quite interesting, and that there's 78% of really mature organizations that are also into mobile learning. So essentially what this means is that established and embedded mobile learning in organizations is already there, but even the organizations which are experimenting with mobile learning, there is a lot of uptake in mobile learning, and that could be attributed to the fact that they're either piloting or exploring mobile learning. While we're doing this, we'll be very happy to take any questions that you might have, and if you can send it to the chat box, that'll be fantastic. Okay, so for those who have responded to the poll, there's another poll for you. Why do you think your organization is implementing mobile learning? So there are 4 choices. If you can choose one, that'll be fantastic. So the growing workforce, first one. Second one is to manage learning workforce on the move. Third one is high usage of mobile devices, and also an important reason because competition is doing it. All right. As soon as we get some more responses, we can close the poll and share the results. So as you can see from the screen, very soon Well, that 80%, which is high use of mobile devices, is something that I think will resonate in this webinar, because what we're saying is that the use of mobile devices in healthcare is so high that by default, any learning that's delivered needs to be also built for mobile learning. So I think that's something that has come out through the poll, and also to manage a workforce that are on the move. So people who don't necessarily sit in front of PCs may have smartphones or tablets, and certainly mobile learning is more conducive for that kind of for workforce. Okay, so let's look at some user cases, right? So essentially, if we were to divide and if you look at this chart, essentially on the top is the type of learner. So there are two types of learners. Number one, who are bound to the PC, and secondly, healthcare workers or professionals who are not necessarily sitting on the desk. So there could be doctors or nurses, or indeed medical representatives who are on the move all the time. On the other axis, we have the completion discretion. What that means is, if it's a discretion that the healthcare professionals have in terms of completing that piece of learning, right? From low to medium to high, and high essentially is, for example, compliance online learning, which everybody has to complete. Therefore, because the results could be, audited. So you can see in terms of the user cases for the different types of content for learning, what you can see here is that compliance learning would fit into the high category, CPD, product knowledge, in the medium category, because even though it is compulsory, there may not be, of course in some cases, if you do not complete your CPD points, your certification or your professional standing may be compromised. And then you've got soft skill, which is essentially discretionary. We've also identified patient or consumer learning. So this is learning or information that is passed on to the patients or the consumers, but essentially that is up to the patients to consume. So there is no obligation for them to consume. So if we have with this chart, if we have a look at the next one, which is essentially which are the areas or pieces of content that are more appropriate for mobile learning, they are marked in orange, right? If the learner has access to PC all the time, that means that they really don't have to have mobile learning. They could simply do an PC-based online course and complete it, right? So it really doesn't make too much business sense to build a course for an audience which is sitting in front of the PC all the time, because that's their preferred route for completing the learning. But if you look at the workforce, which is doctors, nurses, medical representatives, who are always on the move and really struggle to get time in front of the PC, that kind of an audience or workforce is going to use or be more appropriate for mobile learning. And they can take the devices along with them, smartphones or tablets with them. So that kind of gives you an idea about which of the different types of learning within healthcare is more appropriate for mobile learning. Because mobile learning, it does require a little bit of thinking, and we've got some links in the chat box that you can have a look at when you've got time for more information about this. But the interesting aspect is that what if we took a different tack, which is that if we actually designed all learning to be mobile first, which means that what we say is, let's build for a tablet, right? Because anything that you build on the tablet can be played quite easily on the PC, right? So if you go mobile first and design for the tablet, what that means is that it will also show up on your PC fairly easily. So I guess what we're advocating here is that in terms of your own learning architecture and your own learning approach, go mobile first, especially go tablet first, because anything designed for the tablet kind of plays across a PC pretty easily. So instead of just building for the PC, you build for both. Okay, I'm going to now hand over the mic to Dean, and Dean is going to talk about his experiences and case studies from the work that he's done in the healthcare space. So Dean, over to you.
Excellent. Thanks, Jeevan, and welcome everyone. I suppose there's two things I'd like to speak about. One is, I suppose, our process when building e-learning content for our clients, and then also to talk about the really exciting area of augmented reality and how that can be really leveraged to create an exciting pathway into your e-learning, or in fact be the e-learning experience. So, but first to start off, how we would go about, and I know a number of people in the audience may be in the same field as far as delivering content to clients, so hopefully this is helpful. And we use the concept of CCDD, which is customer first, then the content, then the device, then the delivery platform. So I just first want to talk about understanding the customer and the customer needs before we jump in and recommend content or the device. So first, we're dealing with clients who have internal teams like sales forces. We do a lot of work with general practitioner and specialist sales forces. We do some work with the customer service teams or support teams within organisations, and occasionally with some of our local manufacturers on improving the knowledge of their internal teams around manufacturing processes, and that tends to be more with the human resources departments. So first we want to understand if a client is dealing with an internal audience, because we can control those people a little bit more. We can train them about the use of the e-learning content, and this may be quite familiar to a number of you. But then the second larger group we need to look at is if the end user is an external user. So they may be buyers of the product, they may be on-sellers of the product, they may purely be educators, so they're not actually on-selling it all, but they're educating around the product, or they may be customer service, which sort of sit in between, I suppose, the sellers and the educators. So once we've understood that, whether if the customer is an internal or external, or is delivering to internal or external users, then there's a few other things we want to look at, and that's one, what is the workplace or the environment in which they'll be receiving the e-learning? As Jeevan already said, if someone's sitting at their desktop, for 95% of the day, then a desktop delivery is the best method. But if you've got a mobile workforce like a sales team, then that's a different environment altogether. We also look at the experience of the user. We don't want to be delivering content that's not relevant or too simple or too complex for our end users, and that feeds into understanding the level of education that the end user may have. We also think very carefully about the demographics, but I must say this is becoming less important these days. 5 years ago, we probably wouldn't have considered a 70-year-old a suitable target for e-learning on an iPhone, whereas that's probably not so much the case these days. We do still consider the demographics of the end customer. So once we've understood the customer, we then think about content. So we're thinking about the complexity of the content in relation to the end user. We're thinking about the duration of the content. If we just need to deliver short, snappy, punchy content, or is it required that we're delivering intense half-hour sessions, hourly sessions online. But we also think about the frequency as well. Some of the programs we put together are of high frequency, someone receiving something weekly, maybe even daily over a short period. They do very short bursts. We also think about the tone. As many of you know, we can have a very serious tone in our e-learning, or we can also have a lot of fun. So we think about the tone when we're thinking about the customer as well. And with almost exclusively all e-learning delivery, we want some form of feedback. Occasionally we're doing simple presentations via the platforms, but obviously we want to collect something. Again, we're thinking about the e-learning environment, we're thinking about the available time, experience, education and demographics again. Now, we've been speaking, or Jeevan spoke a lot about mobile devices, which are really opening up amazing new channels for us to deliver e-learning, but it's really the third point in our consideration. So once we understand the customer, the type of content that needs to be delivered, we consider the device. So Jeevan, if we just move to that next build. Okay, so the devices at our disposal, I'm sure the audience are well aware of, are smartphones. We do talk a lot about iPhone, but we do think about smartphone as Android, Windows platforms, as well as iPhones, tablets, iPads, Android, etc., laptop and desktop. So we don't consider the device till we consider those first two topics of customer and content, and then we think about how we're going to deliver that content to those users or customers through those devices. And often, when we're thinking about mobilisation, the first thing we might be thinking about is some sort of app. But when we're thinking about the customer-facing or user-facing side of the delivery, we should really consider responsive web as a very cost-effective way to deliver e-learning content across multiple devices without building many times. So, highly effective tool. Also the web app, which is essentially, I suppose, a website designed to be potentially used offline on mobile devices, so sort of the midway between the web and the custom app, which we move into next. Custom apps, we have a lot of clients who want to move down that way, but they're often reinventing the wheel, as many of you may be aware. There are many platform apps out there that will deliver your e-learning content, and Upside have a product called Upside to Go, which I recommend you have a look at as one of those platforms. And we shouldn't, I suppose, forsake, with all the fantastic feature-rich content we can deliver through smartphones and tablets these days, sometimes SMS, or interactive SMS specifically, is, remains a wonderful e-learning tool, particularly for our colleagues in other countries where there may not be the prevalence of smartphones. So that's what we're talking about. What does the customer or user see? But we also think about, for our clients, how are they going to manage the delivery of that content from their side? And again, I'm sure most of the audience are well familiar with LMS being learning management systems. So that's one side of delivery, I suppose, of managing the end user and what courses they're taking and what activities they're undertaking. But we also think about the authoring of the courses, which we generally do ourselves for our clients. But some clients do want to undertake a degree of authoring themselves through a content management system and building their own programs. And again, some LMS systems have that, some don't. Just to move on quickly, just to let you know some of the areas, because if you're sitting there wanting to know a little bit more about healthcare, healthcare is such a broad area. We work predominantly directly with the pharma companies, but they are delivering resources out to multiple end users, being GP sales forces who are really after product knowledge, pharmacy sales forces who are after selling skills, customer service departments who are managing compliance issues, pharmacy assistants who are recommenders of products and require knowledge, pharmacists who are a trusted healthcare resource, and of course both general practitioners and specialists requiring clinical information or case studies around the management of disease states and drug use. So that's some of the areas that we work in. I suppose just to move on now, much of what I've just said there may be familiar to much of the group, but we really wanted to, I suppose, excite you a little bit by some of the possibilities that we think are futuristic are actually happening right now. And we've been working about for 3 years now in the area of augmented reality in healthcare. And I suppose I just want to share a little bit about augmented reality with you. So for some of you, the concept of augmented reality may be some weird term, but hopefully you'll be a little bit more informed afterwards. So imagine a world where any printed page, poster or mailing could actually become a learning video or a learning 3D experience by using tools in the palm of the hand of your customers or clients, and that 3D or video experience would then connect them into your existing or future e-learning systems. And that's how we're utilising augmented reality as a tool to really excite end users into engaging in e-learning programs. So we're going to show you quickly now one of our...
sorry, just a question from me.
Yes.
Even I'm not 100% clear on, what is augmented reality? I mean, where did the term come from, and what's the origin of it?
Excellent question, Jeevan. Well, I mean, it is exactly that. It augments reality. So we're looking for things in the real world. Generally, we're working with, let's say, a piece of printed material, and we're then using an app, an iPhone, a smartphone, iPad app, to recognise that image and generate some form of experience. And I suppose I liken this to being if the audience are used to using QR codes to jump to a website, this is the big brother of the QR code. So it's not just delivering a website or a web video, it's delivering a more complete and impressive experience. So again, augmented reality, we're augmenting something in the real world. Again, we work in the area of healthcare, so obviously one of our foundation apps is called MedEye. It's an eye on medicine. This is an app that can be downloaded from the App Store or Google Play. We're showing it here on iPad. And we're just going to show a video. It's a little bit hard to show the live version. But you can imagine this app has been opened. The user has been given a piece of information that says, watch this image. In this case, if we just click through now, we're going to show you a YouTube video of MedEye in action. Okay, so what's happening here is the users use the MedEye app. They're viewing the trigger image, which is a simple product logo in this case, and launching from that image is a 3D transparent skeleton. The skeleton then waves his hands. It's a little bit jerky here, but waves his hands. He opens a number of video panels. The user can then, it's almost as if they're touching in space, touch one of these video panels, and it commences it triggers a video relating to the disease state. And in this case, it was rheumatoid arthritis, and we have a quick demonstration video. And then if the user finishes the video, they'll return to opening our little character here who we call Skeletal. And this is just one of the treatments that we've embarked upon with our clients. We have 3D hearts, we have 3D brains, we have videos opening from different materials. So we'll just jump back into the presentation and I'll give you a few other examples.
So just to clarify, Dean, so what you're saying is that you take your phone or iPad and use the camera within the phone or the iPad to scan a logo or an article, and then just by recognizing that it is the logo of let's say your company, it actually brings up information about the company on the iPad, and then you're able to interact with that information live.
Exactly. I mean, we can essentially use any image. We've used company logos. We've used static pages from mailing items. We've used articles in journals to trigger 3D content or video. So virtually any image we can use to trigger either 3D or video content. What's also important is that invariably clients are amazed by the technology, but then how do we take it beyond the amazement and then turn it into an e-learning experience? And Jim, if we just jump to the next slide, we can use the 3D experience, for example, as the learning experience. So imagine you were looking at a brain. We could review the brain. I'll just jump back to this slide. It's as simple as this, that you would download the MedEye app, view a target image, enjoy the experience. But the last point is the key, is in most of our work we include some further channel into some additional content. Now, that's often a mobile-enabled responsive website where the user can click more and move beyond the 3D or video experience to learning more about a product or a disease state, or they can request information, request other contact with the company. So again, the augmented reality impact should lead to some other call to action or movement to additional content. So again, Jim, just to move on. So how can AR be utilised? Because amazing technology, how can we actually use it? And we're using it to engage sales teams, or in fact any external team, with interactive anatomical models. We're presenting doctors with information about new modes of action in videos. So we're sending out mailers to doctors, informing them about the mode of action of a new drug. We can bring advertisements to life, and we can also, something we're working with at the moment is adding augmented tags or buttons to devices. So we're moving beyond looking at a printed piece, but actually looking at as a physical 3D device. And when we move the iPhone or iPad over that, it shows small triggers that tell the user more about the device. And this is something that's being well used in the automotive world. For example, Audi teaching their Audi purchasers how to use their steering wheel with all the cruise control and all those sort of things on the steering wheel using augmented reality. So we're doing that with devices as well.
Dane, just a question from me. I mean, this looks pretty futuristic and exciting, but you did mention that it's happening now. So how ready is or how mature is the use of augmented reality now? And is it the use widespread? Is it growing?
No, look, it's not widespread. I think we're only at the beginning of augmented reality as a concept in the marketplace. We've taken some specific customer groups on a augmented reality journey, for example, rheumatologists, and rheumatologists as a group have now been exposed to this, Australian rheumatologists, through 2 or 3 different augmented reality opportunities. And really, people who are jumping on this concept now are the innovators. It does take something of a leap of faith to engage and invest. But what I will say is, from our side, we've tried to make that easy for the client by creating a number of existing augmented reality apps that a client is able to add their trigger images and add their trigger content into. So it's no longer, for our clients, a point where, oh no, I have to learn or I have to create an augmented reality app. There are very few people with those skills. We're giving them a platform to deliver that. So yeah, it's exciting and new stuff for most of our clients. But we've had some wonderful successes and impact. This last one, this is an interesting one. We've had clients who actually want to turn their packaging into a video or turn their packaging into an e-learning experience. One particular example was a concept we developed to have animated characters jump out the top of children's nutrition products. So a lot of exciting things to be done there.
And also, Dean, I think I can imagine within the workplace itself, for example, if you've got a workforce of healthcare professional, nurses, doctors, you also need information there and then. So if you come across a new case, for example, rheumatoid arthritis, right? And if you want to know more, something like what you showed in terms of a 3D image of the bones moving around, and that's far more powerful than trying to read a web page. So I guess it delivers content just when it is needed in the right form.
And if I could share with you that concept of perhaps, say, a nurse wandering the halls of a hospital and triggering a poster on the wall to watch a video or some sort of 3D event, the viral impact of that is quite amazing. We've had reports of, for example, GPs viewing one of our augmented reality treatments and then going into the consulting room of the next GP and saying, hey, you have to have a look at this. So, the viral and excitement around augmented reality is quite strong as well.
Yeah. We've got one question from Sarojini. Basically, what is the percentage of medical workforce using AR? I think I can kind of probably answer that question because it pertains to the workforce. It's very little because I think if AR is invested in, it tends to happen for consumers, and I guess external stakeholders rather than internal. So, less money for the employees and more money for the customers. But definitely it is, moving that way, and especially, I guess it's really worth spending the money if the learning article or the piece of learning needs to be used by a lot of employees over a long time. So, I think the capital investment in that case makes sense.
If I can make a point there too, Jeevan, it's also, if you have existing content like video, you're actually not paying to create new content. You're just retooling it into a different format. So, where we're creating 3D experiences, that's a much more expensive journey than taking video that exists. So I'd encourage your audience to think, if I have existing video content, can I use that in some sort of augmented reality treatment?
Sure. Now we've got a question from Brenda Dean, and the question is, could AR be used in simulation?
Potentially, yeah. I mean, I suppose that's you need to understand exactly what you want to do. But I suppose that I may be misinterpreting. But for example, if you were to look at a device like, say, an infusion pump, and you could actually simulate lights going on with little instructions next to that device. So I'm not sure if that's answering Brenda's question, but
yeah, I think. Yeah, I guess I could jump in to say, yeah, I guess it could be. For example, if let us say you've got a surgical procedure, right? And let's just say it's on the heart, right? And you've got a choice of 3 instruments or 3 devices to use, right? And you kind of say, all right, which one will you choose? And if you kind of, using augmented reality or scan, take the picture of the first device, right? It might actually come up and say, yeah, it's kind of partially right, but not completely. You're better off using the third device. So I guess any opportunity to embed decision making, that could be very suitable. I guess we haven't really done that kind of work, but I think it's very possible.
Yes, that is. Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
My pleasure.
Alrighty, so now from the heights of the excitement that Dean has taken us to, let me get to a more practical reality in terms of what happens if you've already got a lot of online content. How do you make that mobile? And for the purpose of that, the definition is that mobile learning is something that can be played on your devices, right? There is a lot of online learning at this point in time that is suitable for PCs and cannot be played on devices. So this case study really is about a company that had a lot of online courses, healthcare courses, compliance courses, etc. However, the workforce was having an issue accessing those courses because it simply wasn't playable on the PC, and the workforce wasn't in front of the PC. So this is a journey of that. The requirements were, and typically these are the requirements for just not this kind of a case study, but anything similar, is how do you move your existing online library to something that's mobile enabled, can be seen on devices. So the business typically wants the current e-learning to be accessible through tablets for the mobile workforce. So this could be nurses who are walking around the yard, or it could be medical representatives in the car, or it could be doctors. So pharmacists who are behind the counter, example, so that they've got an iPad and they can access that while still standing on the counter. IT typically are also moving towards mobile devices. So a lot of tablets are being supplied to the workforce, and what that means is that you have to get rid of Flash, which is the predominant technology, at least till a couple of years back, in terms of developing interactive content. Now that Flash is on its way out, and there's also an increasing trend that the workforce are being supplied by devices, including iPads. Tablets are proving very popular, but also smartphones. So that's the requirement from the IT. To do this, however, L&D don't have the money to convert everything, right? So it does take money, time and effort to basically make the content accessible on tablets, for example, and there's not enough money for everything. So what happens in this case is that we have termed it as M-enablement. So we take the legacy content, right, and work it in such a way that it plays on tablets, right? And eventually, once that's almost like the first step, and of course any new projects or any new online courses that you might want to develop, you're probably better off developing it so that it is suitable for tablet learning in the first place, like we discussed before. But certainly just making it accessible through tablet is a good first step, because tablets are the fastest growing device segment, and because of the screen size, it's pretty similar to a PC, so anything built for tablets can also easily play on PC. So in this case, what can be done is you take all your courses and then classify them into into this grid that you see on your screen. First of all is the business value of the online course, right? So you decide whether the course is of high business value or low business value. What that means is that it is a course that is of high priority, or really contributes to the current priorities of the business, or it is low. So that's one way of kind of classifying and putting them into two baskets. The other one is complexity of conversion on the y-axis. So it can be either high or low. Some courses are easy to convert, and some courses are more difficult to convert. So what you can do is you can kind of take your courses and put them in the different slots, and you can also kind of classify them according to the amount of budget you have to support that. So this is typically from the business unit. They might kind of say, yeah, we've got enough money for this course. The other might say that we've got 10 courses and we don't have too much money. So depending upon that, that was plotted against this grid, and it might seem something like this. Right, so here are the courses that fall into the 4 quadrants, right? And basically, the size of the dot also shows the budget that's available for like redevelopment of that course. Now, with a limited budget, you obviously would like to do everything, but unable to do all the conversions. So there are 3 approaches that you can use to converting your existing online courses to something that's playable on iPads. Number one is republishing in a higher version of the tool. So this is what we do, is we take the course that's been built using an older version, right, and our team then sits through and republishes it in the same way, so it looks and feels pretty similar to what it was before, but now it can play on a tablet. Right? So that's one. Now that takes about turnaround time is about 1.5 to 3 weeks, but it's the least value add because all you're doing really is just making sure it plays on the tablet without any changes. The second one is partial redevelopment, in which the components of the courses are taken and reused. So it could be images, or you've done 3D videos, for example, that are embedded, and the instructional design. So kind of take what is existing and take the parts that for example, a flash interaction that really can't play on tablets, and convert that, or put some effort into converting that into a mobile format that plays on the iPad. So that's partial. And then complete redevelopment is where you kind of take the course and say, look, this is an important course and it'll stick around for a long time. Therefore, we are going to, and this course has been around for 12, 18 months. We also need to refresh the content, for example. So that is almost looking at the course from a fresh point of view, because either the course is very, very old, or the assets used within the course are too difficult to convert, right? So in which case it's a complete redevelopment. So using the grid we have before, you have a look at that and say, look, where the complexity is high and the business value is low, so they're that's not that useful, I'm really not going to spend any money. And you say, look, they will be in Flash, and that is where they are, and if people want to access that, they can go onto the PC and access it. Right? On the other hand, if you look at the high value, but the complexity is low, you can, depending upon the budget that's available, right, you can either use a complete, partial, or a republish. So basically you use those 3 approaches once the courses have been identified in terms of the complexity, the business value, and also the budget that's available. So the 3 approaches allow you to go down a path that fits your objectives and budget. So that is what we've done with customers in terms of classifying that, because if you have worked for a company that has a lot of online courses, that is a big number of courses, and we've got customers who've got hundreds of current courses in the catalog. So very quickly, I'll just run through that example of what we did for the first one, which is Republic. So using we published Articulate Studio 09 course into a Storyline course, and so it could also play on iPads. The next one is partial redevelopment. Now this is a little bit more complex, and you can see from the screen even the graphics that we've converted are fairly sophisticated. In this case, a course was developed using our own framework, which we call FRED, which is Framework for Responsive E-Learning Development, and it's a fairly advanced framework which ensures that any content that is built in FRED is plays very well on mobile devices, but also the issues that we come across with mobile learning courses are minimized, right? So we took some parts of the course and kept them as is, but redeveloped other parts. The third example is one of complete redevelopment. So again, we used Fred to convert a Flash course, and essentially we redid the complex interactivities were completely reprogrammed because we need to take on the logic from Flash and build it into HTML 4.5 or 5. So here so this is this is, I guess, a picture of working with a customer who's got a lot of existing content that plays on PCs, and that can be converted into something that plays on not only on PCs but also on tablets, and that you can imagine provides greater access to learning that's already there. Okay, so that's a brief case study of what we did there. I'm going to actually hand it over to Ujjwal to talk about some of the lessons that we've learned along the way. And I would there's a question about what is Fred, and I'm going to respond to that. Fred is a framework for responsive e-development. I'll type that up. But I'm going to hand it over to Ujjwal to take over and talk about the lessons learned. Over to you, Ujjwal. Ujjwal, over to you.
Hi. Yes, I think, Jeevan, could you just move to the next slide? And thanks for the insight into, how actually, I think Dean first covered what all can be done in the healthcare industry. And what you have covered is what kind of content can get onto the, mobile learning platform. What I'm going to be targeting right now is, you have to have a strategy also in place before you go ahead with the mobile aspect or implementing it within your organization. So, 7 or things that you need to look into is, if you could just go to the remaining slides, even quickly. Yeah, one is definitely identifying your mobile learning need. So, assuming you have a need, then what all are you going to be doing with that? So in the healthcare industry, you've got, the audience can be right from nurses to you would be targeting doctors. We can also look at the pharma aspect of it. How are you going to be training pharmacists? So who is going to be your target audience? Are they mobile enabled? Are they comfortable with it, using it, and are they ready to use it? The next part is identifying what kind of devices are you going to be giving out, or are they going to be using their own device? Is it going to be a bring your own device, be a BYOD kind of methodology that you're going to be targeting, or is your management going to be providing those devices? Because that, I'm taking the approach where a device is being identified and then we are going to be content for it, but the other method which Dean had mentioned was you first decide on your content and then you target your devices. That also can be used. So that will identifying your devices also helps in identifying what kind of technology architecture is going to be used. And then, of course, the relevant content that is going to be going. In case of relevant content, it would mean that maybe you don't want to use a 10-minute video, but you want to divide it into snippets of maybe 3 or 4 minutes and then roll it out to users. You don't want to be publishing, a very large document which the user might not be, usually over the mobile devices. The attention span is less compared to on a PC. So if it's a phone, then you want to, keep it small. If it's an iPad, you can still play around with keeping a larger size of video or documents also. And lastly, security concerns, because the devices, if they are off the people and you've got information pertaining to your medical or healthcare or hospital, or a video relating to tools or something related to pharma, you don't want it to be lost and fall into the wrong hands. So I think as a Q&A, what we also look at is from the healthcare aspect. You would also be interested to know who your stakeholders are, because you have to convince them in maybe buying the devices or converting this content. How often you would like to refresh that content, because let's say, for example, you are looking at health and safety regulations within your organization also. Each year they might be undergoing some new thing or some new changes. They could also be mandatory. That's something you need to do at the end of that your staff needs to do every year. You also want to see what your IT concern is, so get your IT team involved if you have one, or if you're looking for a vendor, it is important to understand that who is going to be hosting the content and where it is residing, as well as what are the securities reliable. In terms
sorry, just
yeah.
one question. Just in terms of, and also, I guess, Dean, just on the points that Ujjwal's, just covered, that question about does it become systematic. So I'm just wondering, Dean, especially, and also from Ujjwal, from you, is that, some companies might try and experiment with, mobile learning and augmented reality, for example.
Yeah.
What does it really take for it to become like a tool of trade, become embedded? I guess it has to, for one, deliver business value, because if it doesn't, then it doesn't continue. So any insights or experiences about making it sustainable?
If I could, Jeevan, just one comment on augmented reality. We've found where we have a business champion within the organisation, someone who really believes in the technology, that's where it's most successful. And then simply because it's a wonderful technology, if it's not promoted correctly either to internal or external user groups, it won't thrive. So for us, it's about someone who's passionate about it, and implementing with the, I suppose, the appropriate enthusiasm.
Or drive, I would say. Yeah. Yes.
And Ujjwal, from your point of view, do you think that technology in terms of doing learning through smartphone and tablets is mature now? Is the technology stable enough?
It is because compared to earlier, I mean, we've also seen, at least in terms of at our end, in different markets which I've been working in, I've seen more use towards tablets than phones, though phones were the first choice before, but now at least mobile learning definitely is picking up. And I second Dean because you need somebody who can drive mobile learning, even take the risk of, whereas in the case of augmented reality, it's more about moving it to the next level, but even at the basic level of just implementing mobile learning within your organization, you need that driving force, because otherwise it's just going to be another system or tool out there.
Yeah, agreed.
And Dean, just in terms of effectiveness of the learning or the communication that happens something like through augmented reality, obviously, are there certain user cases or scenarios where it is more effective than your traditional means?
Look, I think there's no evidence, there's no hard evidence to compare it to traditional learning, but I'll give you a couple of case studies. The first we find is the first experience of an end user with augmented reality is best presented in person, in our case by a representative or at a trade exhibit. That's where it becomes well accepted by the end user. So that's the best. So implementation is best first face-to-face, then through a mailing or something. But what we do is we actually track every time one of the trigger images is viewed. So we're able to see the breadth of use, which we see a significant breadth of use on the number of, say, mailings we send out. But what's particularly impressive is we tend to see over three uses by any unique device. So we can't track to an individual because Apple won't let us do that, but we can see one trigger image being viewed in most cases 2 to 3 times by any one device or one individual. So what that's saying to me is people are looking at it and thinking, wow, and they're embedding the learning or embedding the knowledge that's being given through the augmented reality. So hopefully that's helpful.
Yeah. Steven and Dean, I just think it's another level of taking it to a different level of learning if you're going the augmented reality route.
Yes.
And I feel one of the options we could see is in a pharma kind of place where they take inventory of the medicines. If they just point at the maybe at a bottle, then come to know using augmented reality that all the information related to that medicine can be shown across on their screens. That's like a case study that can be used.
Yeah, Ujjwal, and certainly, maybe not related directly to healthcare, but the for example, even QR codes on Django,
yes.
the work that maybe you could mention that, because it's quite an interesting example of how augmented reality, it kind of helped learning of a workforce who weren't, I guess English wasn't the first language and they never came into the office. It was quite a difficult environment to do the learning, and the use of QR codes through smartphones, and Upside to Go made it possible. So maybe you can just mention that quickly.
Yeah, I think Django, for the listeners, is a company of that's a cleaning supply company in the UK, and they have a QR code with every product that they launch. So to train their device, a dealership network or their salespeople, they just use the QR code within the Upside to Go application, and then once they point it across on the QR code, it shows you information about the product, lets you download PDFs, or even tells you everything about how to use the product, as well as the risks associated with it, what pricing it should be at. And so that's they've used mobile learning from a sales perspective, but the same can be, if you just mock that up to your healthcare environment, it could also be related to managing your hospital inventory or something like that also.
Thank you very much. I don't think we've got any more questions from the very patient participants who actually stayed with us for 60 minutes. Hopefully, I'm hoping that's because what we talked about was of value and it was exciting, especially the stuff that Dean did. So look, thank you everyone for turning out today for this webinar. We will be running this webinar again in the next couple of months. So if you've got any colleagues or any other person who might be interested in seeing this, most welcome. And of course, if you can just if you do want to get in touch with us, either through to Dean at Antidote Learning or Upside Learning, we'll be very happy to help you out with any of the requirements that you may have, or just to have a chat over what's possible within healthcare, because I think both Dean, myself, and also Julia are quite quite passionate about the healthcare domain. So again, I'd like to thank especially Dean for all the hard work that he's put in, and also Ujjwal. So thanks gentlemen.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thanks everyone, and we look forward to having you at our next webinar.
Thanks everyone.